The ranch lay quiet under the soft glow of the moon. Its wide fields stretched endlessly, dotted with patches of tall grass that swayed gently in the night breeze. The ranch house, a sturdy wooden structure built years ago, stood proudly at the center of the land. Inside, the warm glow of a single lamp lit the living room, where the rancher, James Porter, sat in his leather chair. His hands, strong and calloused from years of work with cattle and horses, rested on his knees. Outside, everything seemed peaceful, but inside, a storm was quietly brewing. James had always prided himself on keeping his family safe. He believed in honesty, hard work, and the quiet rhythms of life on the ranch. His wife had passed away years ago, leaving him with their only daughter, Emily. She was now 16, bright and curious, with an energy that reminded James of her mother. Emily loved the ranch, the animals, and the wide-open spaces. But lately, something had changed. There had been whispers of unease, small hints that something troubled her. Though James had no idea what it was, that night, as he sipped his tea, James heard the soft creak of the floorboards outside the study door. He thought little of it at first. The ranch often made sounds at night. But then the door burst open and Emily appeared. Her eyes were wide with panic and tears streamed down her cheeks. "Dad, Dad, you have to listen to me," she cried, her voice trembling. James stood immediately, his heart racing. "Emily, what's wrong?" "Calm down and tell me," he said, trying to keep his own voice steady. He could see the fear in her eyes, and it unnerved him. She clutched at his arm. It's him. I keep seeing him, Dad. Every night, sneaking into the house. I don't know why. I'm scared." James felt a cold shock run through his body. For a moment, he couldn't speak. His mind raced. What could she mean? Who was sneaking in every night? He had always taught Emily to be safe, to trust, but to be cautious. But this was something entirely unexpected. "Emily, slow down," James said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Who are you talking about?" "What do you mean, he's sneaking in?" She shook her head frantically. "I don't know, I keep hearing footsteps outside my window. Sometimes I see shadows moving across the walls. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, but it keeps happening. I don't know why he comes, Dad. I don't know what he wants." James's heart pounded in his chest. He could see the genuine fear in his daughter's face. He had never seen her like this before. Emily had always been strong, confident, and cheerful. But now she seemed fragile, almost breaking under the weight of her terror. "Emily," James said carefully, crouching down so he was level with her. "We're going to figure this out. I promise. But I need you to tell me everything you've seen, every little detail. No matter how small it seems, it could help." Emily nodded, tears still falling. She began describing the nights that had frightened her. How she would wake in the middle of the night to the sound of soft creaking. How the shadows of someone moving would appear near her bedroom window. How she had tried to tell herself it was just the wind or the house settling, but it never felt right. As she spoke, James listened intently. He took in every detail, his mind forming questions. Who could be in the house at night? How had they entered without him noticing? And most importantly, why? The idea that someone had been sneaking around in their home without him knowing filled him with a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. When Emily finally finished, James sat back in his chair and rubbed his face with his hands. He needed to stay calm, but it was difficult. Every father's instinct told him to protect his daughter, to confront the intruder immediately. But James also knew he couldn't act recklessly. He needed to find the truth first. "Emily," he said finally, "I want you to stay in your room tonight. Lock the door, and don't come out until I say it's safe. I'm going to figure this out, I promise." Emily nodded, wiping her tears. "Okay, Dad, I don't want him to come back." James left the room quietly and began checking the house. He inspected the doors, the windows, and the locks. Everything seemed secure. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no open doors. He even checked the surrounding area, walking the perimeter of the house in the cold night air. The moon cast long shadows across the ground. But there was nothing unusual. Despite this, James couldn't shake the feeling that something was not right. His mind raced with possibilities. Could it be a neighbor? A stranger? Someone from the past who held a grudge? He didn't know, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. The next morning, James tried to act normal, but the unease lingered. Emily was quieter than usual, still jumpy at small noises. James couldn't ignore the worry etched on her face. During breakfast, he decided to approach the subject carefully. "Emily," he said, "I want you to know that I believe you. I know you wouldn't make this up, but I need to understand. Is it someone you know? Someone familiar?" Emily shook her head. "I don't think so. I can't tell. I only see shadows sometimes. Sometimes I hear voices, but they're too quiet to understand. I don't know who it is." James nodded, though the knots in his stomach tightened. He realized that he needed to find the answers himself. Over the next few days, he became more observant, paying attention to small signs around the house. He noticed subtle footprints near the back door, faint, but there. He saw small disturbances in the garden, things out of place that shouldn't have been. It was almost as if someone had been in and out without leaving a clear trace. One night, James decided to stay awake and watch. He sat in the living room with a cup of coffee, his eyes scanning the darkness outside. Hours passed slowly, the silence broken only by the distant calls of animals and the occasional rustle of the wind. Then, just past midnight, he noticed a faint movement near the house. A shadow moved across the yard, careful and deliberate. James's heart raced. He grabbed a flashlight and quietly stepped outside. The night was cold, the air sharp against his skin. He followed the movement cautiously, his mind preparing for any possibility. The shadow led him to the side of the house, where he saw a figure crouched near the garden. James's breath caught in his throat as he stepped closer. In the moonlight, he realized the figure was familiar. It was Emily's father himself. James blinked in disbelief. How could this be? He was seeing himself outside his own home, and yet he didn't remember leaving. Then he noticed the small bundle of blankets in his arms. His heart ached, his understanding began to dawn. He had been sneaking out at night, not as a stranger, but to tend to a small injured animal he had found near the barn. He had been so focused on helping the creature quietly that he hadn't realized how Emily might perceive it. The next morning, James sat Emily down. He explained gently what had been happening, how he had been taking care of the animal, and why he had kept it a secret. Emily listened in silence, fear slowly leaving her eyes and replaced by relief and understanding. For the first time in days, the house felt calm. The tension that had filled the air lifted, replaced by quiet warmth and a newfound closeness. James realized that sometimes even the people we love most can be misunderstood, and that trust and communication are the bridges that heal fear. After the unsettling nights of confusion and fear, James Porter, the rancher, knew that he had to uncover the full truth behind the events that had terrified his daughter, Emily. Although the previous night's discovery of his own secret trips into the yard had brought some clarity, James could sense that there was more to the story than met the eye. Something about Emily's fear suggested that she had noticed things he hadn't, things that might be important. The following morning, James rose early, while the ranch was still shrouded in a thin mist. He moved quietly through the house, careful not to wake Emily, who had slept fitfully. Breakfast was a quiet affair, filled with the sounds of wind rustling through the trees and the occasional clink of silverware on plates. James looked at his daughter and tried to read her expression. She seemed calmer than the night before, but her eyes were still wide and cautious. "Emily," James said gently, "I know you're scared, and I'm sorry I didn't understand sooner. But I want to make sure we figure out everything. Can you help me remember anything else you noticed?" Emily nodded slowly. "I saw something moving near the barn the other night. I thought it was you, Dad. But it didn't look like you. It was small, and it moved very fast. I couldn't see clearly." James frowned. He hadn't noticed anything unusual near the barn. Could there really be something else out there? He decided he needed to investigate. After breakfast, he prepared for the day, grabbing a flashlight, binoculars, and a notebook to record any observations. Emily, sensing that her father was taking her concerns seriously, insisted on coming along. James agreed, feeling that her presence might help her feel safer and more involved in understanding the mystery. They began their walk toward the barn. Stepping carefully over the frost-covered grass, the early morning sun cast long shadows, and the air smelled faintly of hay and soil. As they approached the barn, Emily pointed to a small trail leading behind it. "It was here," she said quietly. "I saw it moving right along this path." James crouched down and examined the ground. There were faint tracks in the soft earth, small and light, unlike the prints left by their farm animals. He noted the direction of the tracks in his notebook. "These are fresh," he murmured. "Someone or something has been here recently." Emily watched intently as her father continued his inspection. The tension in her shoulders began to ease slightly, knowing that James was taking the matter seriously. They followed the tracks carefully, moving toward a small grove of trees at the edge of the property. The grove was dense and shadowed, with the sunlight barely breaking through the branches. Suddenly, Emily gasped. "There, did you see that?" James looked in the direction she pointed and saw a small figure dart between the trees. He froze, trying to make sense of what he saw. It was not an animal, nor was it one of the ranch hands. It was human-shaped, but moved with unusual swiftness. "Almost as if it were hiding something," James whispered to Emily. "Stay calm. We need to be careful." He motioned for her to stay behind him as he slowly moved closer, flashlight in hand. The figure paused for a moment, then quickly vanished deeper into the grove. James followed, his mind racing. He had faced many challenges on the ranch, wild animals, storms, and accidents, but this was different. He felt a mixture of fear and determination. He had to understand what was happening before it could frighten Emily again. After several minutes of careful pursuit, James reached a small clearing. There, he finally saw the truth. The figure crouched beside a shallow hole in the ground, gently tending to something hidden beneath a cloth. James's heart raced as he realized what it was. The figure was a young boy, no more than 12, with wide, frightened eyes. Beside him lay a small, injured fox, its leg bent at an unnatural angle. The boy looked up at James, startled. "Please, don't tell anyone," he whispered. "I'm just trying to help him." James's fear melted into understanding. He knelt down, keeping his voice calm. "It's okay. I won't be angry. I just want to make sure he's safe." The boy relaxed slightly, revealing a gentle smile. He explained that he had found the fox near the creek a few nights ago. It had been injured, likely from a fall or a trap left in the woods. Afraid that the ranchers might not understand, he had returned each night to care for it quietly. Bringing food and water and tending to its wounds, Emily stepped forward slowly, her eyes wide with amazement. You were helping him?" she asked softly. The boy nodded. "Yes, I didn't want anyone to take him away. I wanted him to get better." James felt a deep sense of relief, mixed with admiration. The fear that had gripped Emily was rooted in misunderstanding, not danger. He explained to her that sometimes people or animals needed help quietly, and that not everything hidden at night was bad. Emily listened, her tears replaced by wonder and a new understanding. Over the next few days, James worked with the boy, whose name was Alex, to care for the fox. They built a small shelter near the barn, safe from predators and protected from the weather. Emily joined them, learning how to gently clean wounds and provide food. The experience became a bond between father, daughter, and the boy, uniting them through shared care and compassion. As the fox began to heal, the tension that had haunted the ranch began to lift. The nightly fears vanished, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of helping a creature in need. Emily learned that sometimes fear came from misunderstanding, and that patience and investigation could reveal the truth. James, too, reflected on the lessons of those nights. He realized that even in a life filled with routine and hard work, surprises could happen. Understanding required observation, empathy, and calm action. He felt proud of Emily for facing her fears and of himself for responding thoughtfully rather than reacting in anger. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, casting the ranch in warm, golden light, the three of them, James, Emily, and Alex, watched the fox as it moved cautiously around its new home. Emily smiled, a wide, genuine smile, and whispered, "I'm glad it wasn't something scary." James put his arm around her shoulders. "Sometimes the truth is stranger than our fears, but it's usually better than what we imagine." Alex looked up at James, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you for letting me help him. I was so worried I'd get into trouble." James shook his head. "No trouble. You were brave. And you cared for someone who couldn't help themselves. That's something to be proud of." The nights that had once been filled with fear were now quiet, peaceful, and full of hope. The ranch felt alive in a new way, not because of the mystery, because of the care and courage that had brought them together. The experience taught them all the importance of patience, understanding and compassion not just for animals, but for people too. James reflected on the events in his study later that night. Watching the moonlight spill across the room, he realized that while he had been shocked initially, the true lesson was about connection and empathy. Emily's fear had been valid, but it was also a bridge to understanding something important, that acts of kindness could happen in secrecy, and that sometimes seeing the truth required courage, patience, and careful observation. As he closed his notebook, filled with observations of the fox, the tracks, and the nightly events, James felt a deep sense of peace. The ranch, the land, and the family he loved were safe. Emily had learned a valuable lesson about fear and understanding, and he had learned that even in a life of routine, there was always room for discovery, compassion, and unexpected moments of connection. That night, the ranch lay under a quiet sky, stars twinkling above. There were no more shadows. No more mysterious footsteps, only the gentle sound of the wind through the trees, the soft rustle of leaves, and the quiet breathing of a family who had faced uncertainty together and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. The ranch had never felt so peaceful. The days after Emily's frightening discovery had brought clarity, understanding, and a sense of connection the family had not realized was missing. James Porter, the rancher, had always believed that life on the ranch was simple: work hard, take care of the land, and protect your family. Yet, the past few weeks had reminded him that even in the quietest places, mysteries and challenges could appear, testing patience, courage, and trust. James sat on the porch one morning, watching the sunlight reflect off the dew on the fields. Emily was nearby, helping Alex clean the small shelter they had built for the injured fox. The fox, now healthy and strong, darted around the barn with agility and confidence. Alex laughed as it chased a butterfly, and Emily laughed with him, her earlier fears long behind her. James felt a swell of pride in his chest, not just for the fox's recovery, but for the growth and courage he had witnessed in both Emily and Alex. Yet, James knew that while the immediate danger and misunderstanding had been resolved, there was another matter to address. Emily had been deeply shaken. The experience had revealed something important. Trust could be fragile, and communication was essential in a family. James wanted to ensure that his daughter felt safe and understood, and he realized that this required more than words. It required thoughtful action. That evening, James called Emily and Alex to the living room. The fire in the fireplace cast a warm glow, making the room feel cozy and safe. James sat down, his hands resting on his knees, and looked at Emily first. "Emily," he began softly, "I want you to know that what you experienced was not your fault. You were brave, and you shared your fears honestly. That took courage. I want to make sure that moving forward, you never feel unsafe in your own home." Emily nodded, her eyes glistening but calm. She felt the sincerity in her father's voice. Alex, sitting quietly beside her, nodded too. Understanding that James's words were for all of them, James continued, "Sometimes people do things that seem strange or secretive. But that doesn't mean they are bad. What matters is the intention behind those actions. You have both learned that, haven't you?" "Yes, Dad," Emily said. "I understand now. I wasn't in danger. It was just, I didn't know the full story." James smiled. "Exactly. And that's why communication is so important. If something ever worries you again, no matter how small it seems, you tell me or someone you trust. We can figure it out together." Emily nodded again, feeling a new sense of security. Alex smiled too, quietly grateful for the calm guidance of the rancher. The three of them sat together for a while, speaking about small, everyday matters, the routines of the ranch, the care of the animals, and plans for the upcoming season. The conversation was light, but it strengthened the bond between them, transforming the fear of the past weeks into shared understanding and trust. A few days later, James decided to take action in a more practical way. He realized that the fox could not remain a secret forever. It needed proper care until it was ready to return to the wild. Moreover, Alex had shown remarkable responsibility, and James wanted to ensure that his contributions were recognized and supported. He approached Emily and Alex one morning as they fed the animals. "I've been thinking," he said, "that it's time we make this a family project. Alex, your care for the fox has been wonderful, and Emily, you've learned so much about observation and compassion. I want us to work together to give this fox the best chance to thrive, and perhaps even help other animals in need." Emily's eyes lit up. "Really? We could make it? Like a small rescue?" James nodded. "Yes, we can build a better shelter. Keep a record of the animals we help, and make sure that everyone is safe and cared for. This way, no one has to be afraid of secrets or misunderstandings. Everything will be shared, and everyone will know what's happening." Alex could hardly contain his excitement. "I'd love that. I've always wanted to help animals, but I didn't know how to do it properly. This is perfect." Over the next few weeks, the ranch became a hub of careful, thoughtful activity. James guided Emily and Alex in building a proper enclosure for the fox, teaching them how to monitor its health, provide food, and ensure a safe environment. Emily learned how to identify signs of distress or illness in animals, while Alex became more confident in managing the small projects. James took the role of mentor, ensuring that safety and responsibility were always the priority. The experience had an unexpected effect on their family dynamic. Emily, who had been cautious and anxious during the mysterious nights, now felt empowered. She understood the importance of facing fears, asking questions, and seeking the truth. James, who had initially reacted with shock and uncertainty, found a new appreciation for patience and careful observation. And Alex, once a quiet boy who acted alone to help the fox, discovered the value of teamwork and guidance. One evening, as the three of them sat on the porch watching the sunset, the fox emerged from its shelter and moved gracefully across the yard. Its leg had healed completely, and it carried itself with confidence and freedom. Emily and Alex watched in silence, hearts swelling with pride and happiness. James spoke quietly. "See that? That's what happens when we work together, when we care, and when we face challenges without fear. The fox is safe now, and so are we, because we learned to trust and understand each other." Emily smiled, leaning her head against her father's shoulder. "I'm glad, Dad. I'm glad it wasn't scary after all. I'm glad we could help." Alex nodded. "I never thought I could do something like this. I feel proud and happy." James looked at both of them, a deep sense of fulfillment in his heart. This is what family is for. We protect, guide, and support each other. And sometimes we learn important lessons from the smallest creatures. The ranch seemed to glow in the warm light of the setting sun, as the long nights of fear, confusion, and worry felt like a distant memory. What remained was a sense of connection, compassion, and hope. James knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but he also knew that with patience, understanding, and courage, they could face anything together. In the following weeks, the trio worked on small projects to improve the ranch and help other animals in need. They documented their efforts, creating a small log of animals rescued and cared for. Emily grew more confident, not just in dealing with animals, but in expressing herself and sharing her concerns. Alex flourished under the guidance of James, learning skills he had never imagined he could master. And James, observing the growth and cooperation of his daughter and Alex, felt a sense of pride that went beyond any achievement on the ranch. The story of the fox became a quiet legend in their family. It was a tale of fear transformed into understanding, of secrecy transformed into teamwork, and of unexpected challenges turning into opportunities for growth and compassion. James often reflected on those nights when Emily had been terrified, realizing that the lessons learned had been as valuable as the resolution itself. One night, As Emily prepared for bed, she paused by the window and looked out at the moonlit ranch. She could see the fox moving around its enclosure, now fully healed and confident. She whispered softly, "Thank you for letting us help you." James, standing behind her, smiled and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Remember, Emily," he said, "courage isn't just about facing danger. It's about understanding, helping, and doing what's right, Evan, when it's hard to see the full picture. That's the true bravery." Emily nodded, feeling a deep sense of calm and security. She had learned that fear could teach lessons, that misunderstandings could be resolved, and that actions done with kindness were never wasted. James watched her close the window and go to bed, feeling a quiet contentment. The ranch, the land, and his family were safe, but more importantly, they had all grown in understanding, compassion, and connection. The nights that had once brought fear and confusion were now a source of wisdom and unity. As the moon rose high in the sky, casting a silver glow over the fields, James knew that life on the ranch would continue with its work, challenges, and quiet beauty. But he also knew that whatever mysteries or fears might come in the future, they could face them together, stronger, wiser, and bound by trust, courage, and love. And so, the ranch remained a place of peace, growth, and hope, where a teenage girl, a boy with a kind heart and a father who had once been shocked by misunderstanding, discovered the true power of compassion, patience, and unexpected action. The story of the fox, the mystery of the nights, and the courage of a family became a memory they would carry forever. A reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can change lives in ways no one could predict.